Hi, Kim here. We're going to go back to why the LDS Church is considered by most Christians to be a cult. So this is part 2. I just learned a very important lesson. I can have my camera up, but I can't minimize it to get to my information and still have the camera running. So we're going to go back to where we ended Friday. I was talking about the CES letters, and I gave a couple of quotes from past presidents of the LDS Church that, as I was reading it, I'm like, that can't be right. There's got to be something. No, it was actually their quote, and it is kind of confusing. So I'm going to read it again. On the Book of Mormon, President Ezra T. Benson, who is a past president of the LDS Church, is quoted as saying, "The Book of Mormon is the key cornerstone of our testimony. Just as the arch crumbles, if the keystone is removed, so does the church stand or fall with the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon." And then President Jeffrey R. Holland stated, "Everything in the church, everything rises or falls on the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. By implication, the prophet Joseph Smith's account of how it came forth," remember, the angel Moroni came to him, said he needed to go retrieve it. It was buried. It was written on gold plates. And with his seer stone and his Unum and Thummim, he was able to translate it to scribes. It sounds like a sudden death proposition to me. Either the Book of Mormon is what the prophet Joseph Smith said it is. Excuse me. So the church is true, or the book and its founder are fraudulent to a deception from the first instance onward. And then in 1769, they were comparing the Book of Mormon to the King James Version of the Holy Bible. Now, with the King James Version, it's not the first version of the Holy Bible. There are a lot of versions out there. I own a King James Version. I also own a study Bible that is actually called, and I can't see it from here, but I do have a study Bible. So I own multiple versions of the Holy Bible. But when they translated the scriptures into the King James Version, there were some parts where the person who was doing the transcription was kind of like, that word doesn't make sense, or people will be confused by that word. So we're going to put a different word in. We're going to italicize it so people know we put a word in that was ours. But it'll make it more readable to Christians. So the first of these is in Isaiah 9:1. This is the King James Version. "Nevertheless, the dimness shall be such as was in her vexation, when the first light." I'm going to start that over, because "Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be as was in her vexation, when at first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward did more grievously afflict her by the way of the sea beyond Jordan, in Galilee, in the nations. So that's what Isaiah 9:1 in the King James Version says. Now, in the Book of Mormon, in the book of Nephi, 19:1, it says, excuse me just a minute. Had to get some water. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation. When at first he afflicted the land, he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and Naphtali, and afterward did more grievously afflicted by the way of the Red Sea beyond Jordan, in Galilee of the nations. Now, if you recall, in Isaiah 9:1, they never once mentioned the Red Sea. But Joseph Smith said, oh, this had to have taken place at the Red Sea. And it's kind of interesting if you notice in the King James Version, the book is Isaiah. And the Book of Mormon, the book is Nephi. So, and it's just kind of, you know, even the words that the translators italicized in the King James Version, Joseph Smith translated. He wasn't changing the words. He wasn't saying, oh, I don't understand this. Oh, this is here. I'm just going, I guess it needs to be italicized. Joseph Smith did claim when he was translating the Book of Mormon from the seer stones that some things took him a little longer to translate to get it right, because if he didn't get the word right, God wouldn't let him translate it. So where he made changes on his own, you know, and he does claim that his is a restoration, that the scriptures weren't correct. And it really is kind of confusing. And again, this instance that is being quoted in Isaiah was also quoted in Matthew 4:14. And even he didn't mention the Red Sea. He told the story the same. Then in Malachi 3:10, in the King James Version, it's Malachi 3:10. And pour out a blessing, and there shall not be enough room to receive it. In 3 Nephi 24:10, in the Book of Mormon, it says, and pour out a blessing, and there shall be not enough room to receive it in the and if you look at these, it's where there were a lot of there were 7 italicized words in the King James Version. And 7 italicized words in the Book of Mormon. And the Book of Mormon does include mistranslated biblical passages that were later changed in the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible. So we have him working on the Book of Mormon and his translation of the Holy Bible. And here we have 3 Nephi, 13:25 through 27. And this is the Book of Mormon. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body, what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body more than raiment? Behold, the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather in barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are you not much better than they? Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit to his stature? Then in the Holy Bible, the King James Version states exactly what was put into the Book of Mormon. But when Joseph Smith, I'm incorrect there. In the King James Version, Matthew 6:25 through 27 states, again a change on the books, therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor for your body, what ye shall put on it. Is not the life more than meat, and the body more than raiment? Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, or gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are you not better than they? Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit to this? Now, the the Joseph Smith translation, Matthew 6:25 through 27 states, and again I say unto you, go into the world and care not for the world, for the world will hate you, and will persecute you, and will turn you out of their synagogues. Nevertheless, ye shall go forth from house to house, teaching the people, and I will go before you. And your heavenly Father will provide you for whatsoever things ye need for food, what ye shall eat, and for raiment, what ye shall wear to put on. So, Nephi is really close to what the King James Version of Matthew 6:25 says. But then the Joseph Smith translation, it kind of covers the same idea, but it's not worded the same at all. It's totally different. And when it comes to the Sermon on the Mount, the King James Version of the Bible and the Book of Mormon are identical. But when Joseph Smith did his own translation of the Bible, he made changes and he made contradictions. So what he's saying when he transcribes his version of the Bible is, oh, I made mistakes in the Book of Mormon, I had to correct it, so here I'm correcting it. When he already told us God would not allow him to translate anything from the gold plates unless it was correct. Another thing that's confusing is we're going to talk about DNA analysis and things the church used to believe in that they don't anymore. And when I say the church, I mean the LDS Church. In their minds, they're the one true church. Joseph Smith restored the church. He restored the Bible. He restored the faith. He restored everything. So if you don't believe this and you're still following unrestored things, you're wrong. I think I had to do this correctly. Okay. Until 1976, dark-skinned people were not allowed to hold the priesthood. And they did not have temple recommendation. That's because part of what the church believed, well, up until 1796, the church believed that there were people who didn't fight hard enough in the wars that take place in the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith's version of the Bible. So to punish them, God blackened their skin. So they were lesser. They weren't worthy. And then in 1976, when, lo and behold, the president of the church came out and said, you know what, God changed his mind. Black people can hold the priesthood. And they can receive temple recommendations. So until then, if there were black people in the church, which there were, or even Asian people, their skin was darker, they couldn't do these things. But now God changed his mind and he said they can hold the priesthood. They can receive temple recommendations, so they can seal their families in the temple, they can get married in the temple, that kind of thing. So the church considered these darker skinned people Lamanites. And they said, before we learned about or got really good at DNA analysis, the church said the Lamanites, and they are the principal ancestors of American Indians. Well, right before the DNA findings were put out, the church learned of it, and the church, were like, we're gonna hit this before it comes out. We're gonna go ahead and make a change. And they said the Lamanites, and they are among the ancestors of American Indians. So they changed it from being the principal ancestors to among the ancestors. And the church has done a DNA analysis essay that they did in 2014. And the church, they're always having to backpedal. Just like one story I remember when I was growing up, because I grew up in southeast Idaho, probably about a half hour from Ricks College, which was an LDS junior college, meaning it was only a 2-year college. It's now BYU Idaho, so it's a full university. And there was a member of the church who was working at Ricks College, and he had gone into the teacher's lounge, and he saw all these cases of Diet Coke and Coke. But more LDS people aren't supposed to drink caffeine. Well, he wrote for the paper, and he broke the story that the teachers had all this caffeine in the break room. And so that was a big thing. And then later on, the president of the church at the time, which I think was President Kimball, he came out and said, he had a revelation and God had changed his mind. And he said, you're not supposed to overdo the caffeine. You're really not supposed to caffeine. God would prefer you didn't, but he's not going to say you can't have it. So they backpedal on things a lot. Another thing, back around that time period, because I lived in Idaho Falls, which was a predominantly LDS community. My family was not part of the LDS community. We were part of Idaho Falls, but not the LDS community. And the neighborhood we lived in, there were a lot of LDS families that lived there. And these were good they were TBM families, true believing Mormon. And, I would get to know their kids and we'd play a little bit. And then once the parents found out that I wasn't LDS, my parents weren't open to conversion, their children weren't allowed to play with me anymore. So there were, I think, two other families in the neighborhood that had children my age who were not LDS, that kind of out of necessity, their daughters and I became friends so that we had somebody to play with in the neighborhood. So another problem with the Book of Mormon is that the Book of Mormon mentions that there were horse and cattle and oxen, swine, goats, elephants, wheels, chariots, all these things taking place during the time the Book of Mormon supposedly took place, which would have been between 2200 BC and 241 AD. Well, these things didn't exist in the pre-Columbian American times at that time. Wheat, steel, iron, none of this was in pre-Columbia America. But yet, Joseph Smith put them into the Book of Mormon, so they must be true, because we know that Joseph Smith is true, and the church is true, and the Book of Mormon is true. But that's about where we're going to end today. And I will be back tomorrow, and we'll do part 3 tomorrow. So make sure you join me, and see you all then. Bye.